Hello, everyone, and trust you're all doing well. I'm happy to welcome you all today to a very insightful webinar session on POSH, Internal Committee, Concept and Applicability. I'm sure you're aware of the mandates of a very important piece of legislation, that's the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013, which is very commonly called as POSH. While there have been many discussions on creating and implementing a sexual harassment policy at workplace and requirement for creation of an internal committee to address these complaints, today's webinar is going to delve deep into the structure, role, and responsibilities of the internal committee, which I'm sure would propel organizations to take a more meaningful action in this area. It would not be wrong to say that the implementation of POSH has been a long continuum. While some organizations have embraced it both in letter and spirit, there are still many other organizations to implement the Act in totality. And this webinar enables you to understand what an internal committee in an organization stands for under the POSH Act. And as I mentioned, this webinar will primarily focus on the structure, roles, and responsibilities of an internal committee. And important judgments in the context of internal committee is also going to be discussed through this webinar. This webinar is brought to you by EBC Learning. EBC Learning is EBC's educational initiative that provides on-demand legal education. The objective of EBC Learning is to help you learn and win. You could check out on our courses on ebclearning.com. However, I'll take a couple of minutes at the end of this webinar to navigate you through some of our courses, some of the courses that we offer. And I'm happy to introduce today our distinguished speaker, Ms. Anjali Ahuja. Welcome, Anjali. Anjali Ahuja is an associate at New Delhi Law Offices, a leading law firm in India. It was early on in her career that she started to develop a deep understanding of the organizational needs to build its people as assets and resolve various issues at hand, which only expanded over the 16 plus years of her experience in terms of handling critical and valuable HR roles across banking, media, and retail sectors. Having worked with Citibank, ABN AMRO, Gap Inc., and Hindustan Times, and thereon being an entrepreneur since 2009, Anjali focuses on social-centric approach to her clients. Anjali has been instrumental in developing and implementing human resource strategies and policies, talent acquisition, employer branding, employee relations, and HR operations. Past experiences with corporates combined with a passion to work on employment-related issues and a specialization in POSH, Anjali plays a pivotal role in employees and internal committee compliances, audits, policies, policy structuring, legal advice, and much more. Of course, this is a very short version of Anjali's profile, and you could check out on a detailed profile of Anjali on her LinkedIn page. And I'm Dr. Pratima Narayan, and I'll be the moderator of this webinar. I'm an editor at EBC Learning and founder partner at Technology Consulting LLP. For a few quick preliminaries about this webinar is available on demand, and we'd of course love to hear from you, and feel free to post your questions and clarifications on the chat section, and we'd be happy to take them at the end of this presentation. At last, we also encourage you to share today's webinar with your social networks. We are live on YouTube, and you could also share this, you could use the social sharing icons in the email invitation that's also been sent to you. So over to Anjali now, and Anjali, thanks once again for being with us on this webinar. I invite you to take on the session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pratima. Thank you for this gracious introduction, and thank you to EBC Learning to create this kind of a platform where at least, people can come, share knowledge, and be connected. It's great that we have picked up such a topic today, because it's a topic of relevance. Like you initially introduced the topic by saying that a couple of organizations have been proactive and implemented a lot of what Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013 says. At the same time, we are also, kind of struggling with a couple of organizations who are still fearful of the idea itself. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to mention a few things. I know that today's audience is a mix of law students, law professionals, and people from HR fraternity. So I'll try to create as much balance as I can to cater to this group, which is from different areas of work. I would like to also mention that since we are talking about internal committee, we'll be talking a lot from an organization's perspective. You know, what they need to do to have a robust internal committee, their understanding, the lapses, the kind of repercussion these kind of lapses could have on their functioning. On it's not merely a reputational damage. It could be something to do with culture, it could be financial loss. But as we go deeper into the presentation and discussion, we'll take it on in a more structured way. The last thing that I wanted to say was that I would be mentioning a certain judgments or cases, and in case people are interested in the detailed citation, I'll be happy to share it on the chat or email if they provide us. Now, going right ahead into our discussion, first question first. Which organizations need to have an internal committee? So broadly and simply, an organization which has 10 or more employees needs to form an internal committee. Now, when I say that only employees 10 and more needs to form an internal committee, does it mean that if I am a smaller setup or I belong to an unorganized sector, what happens to my sexual harassment complaints then? Then you can reach out to your local committee according to your district. Coming back to internal committee and organization. As the name suggests, it is an organization or a workplace where you receive and there is a redressal of complaints of sexual harassment. It is very specific to complaints. Now, according to the Act itself, it has been given a very proper structure, which we need to follow. This committee is supposed to be headed by a presiding officer. A presiding officer has to be necessarily a female employee at senior level at the workplace. Now, this is a non-negotiable fact. You cannot have a male presiding officer here because Act clearly says that it has to be a female officer. Also, it would be interesting for you guys to get a deeper understanding when we say a senior level officer. There has been a particular case that's you can refer to that. This case is called Shobha Goswami versus State of Uttar Pradesh, where High Court of Allahabad held. The respondent said that the presiding officer that you're calling somebody who's at a senior level is a lady who's reporting to me. I'm much more higher in hierarchy to her. But the court held that it does not mean if the perpetrator is senior to the presiding officer who's a senior level female that the case doesn't exist. So seniority has to be looked at in terms of hierarchy within the organization or experience. At no point does it mean that in hierarchy, if the person who's committed an offense is senior within the organization, it doesn't hold true. The IC works objectively, in totality, free from any kind of biases as such. Coming on to the other members. Now, 2 members you need again from the employees, and this could be preferably people who are aware of the cause of women or who have experience in some social work or have a legal knowledge. Now, these 3 people are from the employees within the organization itself. When we say not more than 2, it doesn't restrict us in any way. Rather, you can have more than 2 members as well, in case you feel that there could be a possibility where somebody might be traveling, somebody might not be available. For all practical purposes, you might also look at increasing this number. The fourth person on the structure is an external member. Now, this external member has no barrier on gender. This could be male or female, but what is necessary is that this person should be from an NGO, from a legal fraternity, or from an organization which is again familiar with the women-related issues. So just summing it up for you, for this internal committee, the structure is such that at the top, the presiding officer has to be a senior female employee. In case you do not have a senior female employee within your organization, you might as well look at subsidiary companies, group companies, or concerns, for that matter, to have a female employee as a presiding officer. The next 2 members, again, from the employees within the organization. External member is the only member which will be an outside member on your internal committee. The law also states that 50% of your internal committee strength should be women. Okay, so that's again something that you need to look into. The term for these members is 3 years. So post 3 years, this would go on rotation. You'll probably have to include newer members there. Now, also, you have to understand that while you form the IC, it has to go in writing. It cannot be a verbal commitment. So the management has to proceed in writing that these are our IC members, and an order needs to be. Just a small point that I missed on an external member, that an external member is allowed an allowance, a minimum amount of 200 rupees, which the organization can pay to them, plus the travel expense as on inquiry basis. Coming back to the term of the IC member, now the question is, if there is a 3-year term, can these members step down? Is there a possibility that these members step down? Yes, there are certain possibilities which might cause for disqualification of these members. And I would like to just mention that in case any of the IC members is found to be breaching the confidentiality, in case there has been a conviction, in case there has been an inquiry or pending inquiry against a member, and also if they are found to be abusing the position that they are in, there is a possibility that you may ask them to step down before the 3-year term gets over. This IC plays a very, very critical role within the organization at 2 levels. One is the technical know-how part, where we say, okay, we need to follow a particular process, we need to follow a particular timeline. But IC also has to be sensitized to the fact that this is a critical issue. And they need to look at it in a sensitive, confidential, unbiased approach. You cannot be sitting in an IC inquiry committee and going out in your workplace premises and saying, oh, so-and-so person, an inquiry is going on then. You cannot have your unconscious biases with both the parties, whether respondent or complainant. You cannot work on a presumption that if a complaint has come against somebody, then there has to be something. Unless your inquiry is completed, you don't carry those kind of notions. And that is why when I started with this section, I said that there are 2 things: technical know-how plus the implementation, which is rather delicate when it comes to issues like this. And that is how a robust internal committee in tune with the prescribed law or norm becomes very, very important for an organization to look into. Now, if I say that, I don't really want to form, I don't feel it is important to form an internal committee, irrespective of the law. I'm fearful of making an IC. I feel that if I make an IC, maybe the complaints would increase. there is no such provision. You have to comply with the law, and non-constitution of IC could also lead to a financial fine, up to 50,000 rupees. It could also lead to cancellation of business licenses or withdrawal of licenses in case you are a repeat offender on that. It would be interesting to share with you guys at this point of time that you can look up the case. It's Gayatri Balaswamy versus ISG Novasoft Technology Limited. In this case, while there will be many interesting aspects, I can't hear you.
Anjali, could you please repeat the citation for the benefit of the participants?
Gayatri Balaswamy versus ISG Novasoft Technologies. I could share the detail later, maybe. I could type it out. Under this case, there was this, the complainant was awarded compensation of 1,68 lakhs under the section of damages for non-constitution of committee to inquire into allegation of sexual harassment. So, the moment your IC has done an ineffective job or has not complied with the fair play, has not heard both the parties, and it reaches to litigation, your fine might not be restricted to a 50,000 rupees. It might just take a very different tangent where impact would be calculated, taking into consideration many other things, So that's one case that you can look into. There is also another case which is pretty recently decided. That's Nisha Priya Bhatia versus Union of India. In this case also, again, you will find many things that are being discussed in this case as well. But what is of relevance and interest to our topic right now is that, again, the non-existence of IC was again noticed in this particular case, and a compensation of 1 lakh was being awarded to the complainant. So this was a raw case, research and analysis wing, and there were many aspects to it, but this one being something that you would want to read in line with what we are discussing today. Now, going ahead with the technical aspect for an IC, there is a process that IC needs to follow in terms of inquiry. And I cannot, continue to reiterate the fact that when we say compliances, when we say timelines, they are to be followed. So when we say that in how many days can a complainant file a complaint to the IC? Well, you have to follow a protocol of 90 days, which means it could be 90 days from the event, from the day when the event happened. In case there is a series of incident, you can take 90 days from the last event that has happened. Now, IC has the right to extend this time, if they find it reasonable, the reason is convincing to them, they might extend on this time, and this has to be done unanimously with all the members in place. Further to this, once the complaint is filed, of course, even to file a complaint, there is a protocol. You need 6 copies of the complaint. There has to be a supporting document in cases where it's available. Details for the respondent has to be supplied. So all these are, the technical aspect of it. But having said that, does it mean that a female in my organization probably is not as well equipped to write an application? What do I do then? Do I stick to my written complaint, or do I help them in the best possible way and still consider the complaint? So that's where the sensitivity, sensitization, and responsible part of an IC comes into play. It could be a female guard in an organization who's probably not adept at writing this kind of a complaint. It should not dissuade her in any way to come up to an IC and put across her concern. So that's where they walk a very thin line in terms of timeline, process, procedure, but end of day, dealing with people where you are also contributing to building a culture in the organization itself. Now, once the complaint has been filed, within 7 days, a copy of the complaint is sent to the respondent. The respondent again has 10 days to reply to it with with the supporting documents. Then there is a 90-day period for the inquiry to again get completed. Um, Inquiry report should be issued within 10 days of completion of inquiry. After the inquiry is completed, the recommendation has to be implemented by the employer within 60 days. You again have 90 days for appeal in case there is a new evidence or there is some disconnect and the respondent or the complainant wants to bring it up. So as you can see, it is so well structured that to assume that I have an IC, I have appointed an IC from within my organization. Now, these are people who are working on their job profile as such. It could be an operations person, it could be a salesperson. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person will be able to understand all this in one go. And that's where it becomes critical for the organization to handhold these people and have that clear stance. You know, it talks for the organization if the IC is unbiased. It talks a lot about the work culture in a place. So that bit of handholding again is something that an organization has to set right and take it upon themselves that, you know, this is something that they need to do as a matter of fact, not only as a law compliance, but also to create the goodwill amongst people, you know. End of day, your productivity, etc., gets affected if the environment itself is not good where people are working. Now, okay, so in 2016, there was a repealing and amending act that came and it renamed Internal Complaint Committee to Internal Committee. While it could be looked at as just a name change, why don't we delve further and see that what really changed by changing this name? Now, when initially I was an internal complaint committee, I was very, very focused on, resolving the complaints of sexual harassment. But as I am renamed as internal committee, my job has widened. The spectrum of work has widened. I am not only now to resolve complaints, but I play an active and important role even in terms of prevention. So when it comes to creating a culture of zero tolerance to complaints of sexual harassment, it is the role of IC. When it comes to training your employees about sexual harassment instances, what calls for it, it is a role of IC. When it comes to practicing an open door policy or having the code of conduct correctly, it is a role of IC. Being proactive and ensuring that you are working continuously towards building a safe environment for your people, it is a role of IC. And you have to have effective guidelines in place. That is also role of IC. So, a shift has happened. As the law is evolving, the roles are also evolving. And that is something that one needs to look into on a continuous basis. It is relatively a younger law. I mean, it has just come in 2013. But if you will look into the cases, you will find pretty much a lot to see into it. In fact, there is another case, Punita K. Sodhi versus Union of India, which can be looked into, where there was a criticism regarding the constitution of an external committee member as such. So pretty much everything, when it reaches the legality, can be questioned if you have not complied by it. And So it's in higher good of the organization and people of the organization to comply by things for the purposes of legality and also for the purposes of functioning of an organization in an effective, non-biased way. Now, coming to again, now this thing also has a ripple effect. Right now, when we say that an internal committee is not being formed, you would be happy to know that it has a ripple effect. When we look at the company's account rules 2014, I think 2018, this came under a section where they said that the company has to give a statement, even as a company account submission, that they have complied by the provisions relating to constitution of internal complaint committee under the Sexual Harassment Act. So if I am doing that in my company returns also right now, and I have not actually done it, I am just, kind of not, I have not complied by the law, and still I'm saying that no, I have an IC, etc. Then it will become a punishable offense, because then you are providing an incorrect or false information. So you can see that how things are now getting connected. Now we are not working only in isolation, but things for us are getting connected. That if you're not doing it here, then it has to be supplemented in your company accounts as well. So yet again, working of IC, submitting of details, it becomes absolutely critical to the organization. There are annual reports that IC works on, and there are certain heads that they need to supply for sure as a mandatory thing. For example, the number of complaints of sexual harassment received in a year, number of complaints disposed of during the year, number of cases pending for more than 90 days, number of workshop or awareness program against sexual harassment carried out, nature of action taken by employer or district officer. So now you can see that how much detailing you need to do in any case when you are providing the annual report as well. So you might as well have a process in place to record these things so that there are no lapses when you are submitting your annual report in this matter. IC's role, as I see it, it's an evolving role from sector to sector. I do come across certain people who say, oh, but I don't have many female employees. My unit only employs a lot of male employees. Now you have to understand it in totality. One, it is mandated by law. Second, also, if there is a female worker and somebody misbehaves with her, they also can complain to IC. So IC, you ought to have. You have no option not to have IC. And also, one should not kind of, confuse it with a disciplinary committee. So a complaint in a usual course going to an HR department of an organization is very different to what goes to an internal committee. It is only the complaints which are related to sexual harassment that goes to an internal committee. People here are specifically trained, specifically updated to handle these complaints. Now, for example, for the current times that we are in, the COVID times where most of us have moved to a work from home kind of a scenario, what happens to these complaints now? Are they not going to exist? Is this not going to happen? Has it become our last priority right now? These are the questions that we need to answer. I would suggest, in case there is an investigation that is going on right now in your organization, you cannot take a plea that we were working from home and we could not meet the stipulated timeline as per the Act. That would not be a very right thing to do. Why I say so? Because, a lot of our judicial matters have been also taken to virtual platforms. So what is necessary is being done through virtual platforms. When we look at our Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they have allowed AGMs to happen through video conferencing. Now, why in such a scenario would an internal committee decide that, okay, this is not possible right now? So the law, the circumstances have to adapt. So my suggestion, even in current times, would be please continue with your pending investigations and record it in the best possible way. Also, another thing to look at right now is that, mm, with work from home, what is also happening is that we are all getting into complacency. We are working from home. We are probably operating out of our bedrooms. We are on video calls. We are wearing our casual clothes. So we don't mind cracking a joke here and there, without thinking that we are still working from home. And it might just offend another colleague of ours in some way. Or, we are wearing something that has some sort of a slogan or something written which might just offend somebody in the process. So there the lines are diluting a bit. So it is highly suggested that even now the internal committee within their roles should have certain preventive measures or certain sensitization sessions uh, for this kind of a scenario, because we have never ever faced this scenario before. We are all adapting to it, we are all seeing it, and I'm sure there are other teething issues that we need to address. But for now, I think it would be highly suggested that you do something about it. Do you want to add something to that, Dr. Pratima?
Not really, not really. I was just taking on to this. I was just engrossed in the whole conversation. That's the whole thing. Yeah. So thank you, Ms. Anjali, for a very, very insightful presentation. And there have been, I'm sure there's a lot of takeaway that our attendees have got through this webinar today, especially in the context of how do you structure this whole IC committee. And some of the key takeaways today have been, as Anjali has rightly pointed, what are the mandates and what is not negotiable here? That is the most critical part of it. And how do you structure your IC as per the mandates of law? The second very important aspect that needs to be kept in mind is 50% women being on the IC roles. That's another very key point. And the third thing, which Anjali pointed also, which I would like to reiterate, is the concept of the principles of confidentiality and unconscious bias when it comes to resolving disputes, resolving complaints on the IC, through the IC. Anjali also pointed out some of the technical issues, technical processes in the context of timelines and in the context of documentations that need to go and that the ICs have to be compliant with. Very importantly, what are the circumstances that could attract penal consequences for the IC members, which the IC members have to be cautious of, and how does the annual report need to be structured? How is it going to be structured by the IC committee, and what is the role of the members here? These have been some of the most important points that Anjali has brought out, and very importantly, to more towards the end of the discussion, Anjali has rightly pointed out regarding the work from home aspects. We've thought that all these ICs are just doing nothing now, but it's very critical because internet and the electronic medium is just continuously being used as a medium of work. So anything that Anjali has just pointed out in terms of a slogan or whatsoever could be a trigger point for a sexual harassment issue of the sort. So this is something that the IC members would also need to keep in mind as far as the COVID times are concerned, work from home is concerned, and moreover, there is no compromise on the timelines. That was the most important takeaway that we've had through through this discussion. Anjali, we do also have some interesting questions which we'd like to take on. The first question coming from Dr. Ashwini Kumar. Ashwini Kumar, if there are 6 locations and there is a pool of 6 external members and 30 employees, then for any IC meeting at one location, what is the minimum number of IC members that should be present for the meeting to be valid?
3. 3 members in any investigation minimum have to be there, including the external member.
Okay.
And so at this is happening, you have to make sure that 3 members are there and the external member is there. This is in terms of inquiry.
Okay. Just an extension to the question, if there are 8 members of the IC, and is it okay to have 3 members who are physically present and the others joining in on web?
Yes, pretty doable with technology right now.
Sure.
Like I said, that the 50% of the IC members should be female, that being one criteria. Beyond that, you can use technology, you can use whether people are physically there, whether they are virtually connected.
Anjali, we are losing out on your voice and your screen has frozen. Anjali? Anjali, your voice, your screen has frozen. Give us just a moment. We should be back. Yeah, so just give us one moment and we should have the panelists back.
I'm back.
Welcome, Anjali. Yeah, welcome back. Yeah.
Sorry for the technical hag. And right at the time when Dr. Ashwini asked, can people be virtually connected? We had this.
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Ashwini, to just add to your query that yes, you can have it, but connectivity should not be an issue. We saw a live example of that.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. That was
Continue.
on a lighter note, and yes, but that's true as well.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll just move on to the next question. We are a corporate body situated in Jaipur and an office having an office in Noida. So can Jaipur office have an IC member in Noida?
Well, what you can do is that you can have a main IC in Jaipur, and you can have two more employee members from Noida. So you may keep your presiding officer at the main office that you have, but even for branch offices, have a representative. Have a representative from there as an onboarded IC member. Because I think one another part that I missed during my discussion was that how one is also supposed to display the details of all the IC member, preferably in a form of a poster. So even when you have location difference, you should put that kind of a person from different location on the main IC, and that detail should be displayed. So if you have an office in Jaipur, you should have your main IC members, and you should have a local representation from that particular location as well, in terms of the more than two employees that you can have on the IC.
Sure. Okay. We have another question. This is from a law student.
Okay.
My question is that we see shift in law, but how much is it implemented and shift in the implementation in the field? I guess they are just trying to look at what are the basic primary shifts in the implementation process.
So they want to know that how many of us are implementing it right now, if I'm gathering that
I
correctly.
guess
That's
so.
on
How much is
ground
it
reality,
implemented?
what
Looks
is
like,
actually
yeah.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is the shift in the implementation? Yeah.
So, it's a broad spectrum. On one end, I initiated my discussion, and I told you at one end, I have a fearful set of organization who come up with this frivolous thing like, if we educate our employees, the complaints would go up. And on the other hand, I have organizations who are so proactive that, like I discussed with you, that during COVID also, they have already worked on sensitization modules. They have already added the do's and don'ts to their anti-sexual harassment policy. So to answer that question, yes, we do have a challenge there. In terms of driving the implementation in a more robust and neat way. But like they say that every challenge has an opportunity, and that is what I guess draws me to the cause. That I also find it rather amusing that when people say that the cases will go up, you educate our people, they're going to come and report more. Now we are a social media generation. How do they come into believing that if they don't talk about the issue at hand, nothing is going to happen about it? I mean, you look at SheBox, it's a click away for any woman sitting anywhere. You can file a complaint on SheBox. Or you look at a show app, which is more pertinent to Noida and Greater Noida area, where I can put a complaint just at click, So if I will not talk about the issues within my organization, if I'm not going to talk about, the culture of my organization, if I'm not going to stand tall and say that I stand for zero tolerance against sexual harassment, people are going to go out, people are going to reach legality. They are free to go and put a complaint in a police station. They are free to go and file a case against somebody who's done wrong to them. So I, as an organization, should feel how important it is for me to implement this thing. So to the student who has asked this question, we are in a very interesting phase of it right now. Where at one extreme we find organizations who are much ahead of their time. Rather, I would like to add that a couple of organizations I worked for, they had gender neutral policies when it came to sexual harassment at workplace. So while the law talks about women workforce, these organizations have gone ahead and said that even if to the male population something wrong is happening with context of sexual harassment, we are not going to take it lying down. So while we have organizations which are skeptical to implement a particular thing that has been enabled by law, at the same time, we have organizations who have gone one notch higher and said, I am going to be a gender neutral organization when it comes to crimes like this. We're in a very interesting space.
Yes, yes, it is indeed. Anjali, we'll just move on to the next question. Where there is a litigation because of an action taken following a decision by the IC, can the higher court also summon the chairperson or members of the IC during the proceedings? That's the question. And my understanding is that just like any judge at a lower court is not allowed, is not called by the high court while hearing an appeal, no IC member will be summoned by the higher court. So
you know what, like I said, the things are evolving. If we look at the cases also, which I have mentioned, when we look at Punita Sodhi case, again, the person has questioned the empanelment of an external member. So it is not that fair play of IC will not be questioned. There are cases where they have questioned the whole premise of my investigation was not fair, or the people involved were biased. Rather, I do not have the name of the organization, but there was a particular case where the IC member himself had molested the girl and she went ahead and filed a complaint against him. So yes, you are part of the IC committee. Yes, you are part of the investigation, but it does not safeguard you from a questioning further in terms of what you have done in that inquiry, how fair you have been, how much consideration have you given to the facts, to the feelings, because we are all humans, right? So we have to segregate the facts and the feelings in the way forward. I don't see it as a kind of, safeguard that I am an IC member, I can do no wrong and I cannot be questioned. That will not happen. I beg to differ from that a little bit.
Okay. So there's one question. What is the role and how to form a committee in schools as the attendee is a teacher?
As the attendee is a teacher?
The attendee is a teacher, and the attendee would like to understand what is the role and how to form a committee in schools.
Well, it would be the similar way. It would be the similar way. There has to be a presiding officer that's female, 2 of the employees, and 1 external member. Even for schools, educational institutes, it has to be the similar way.
Right. The next question being, is there any law regarding conducting IC meeting regularly or any specific timeline? Or do we have to conduct the meeting only once we receive a complaint?
See, you can do it as a best practice if you wish to. You can have your quarterly meetings, because as I elaborated, IC's role is not restricted to complaint handling. So if you don't meet, when are you going to drive things like employee training programs, sensitization, creating forums? All this is also part of your job now. So ideally, you should have a frequency where you are meeting in any case to discuss the way forward, to discuss the issues at hand. You will have to work very proactively and gradually and consistently to come to a point where people will have trust in you. A lot of complaints do not get registered because people feel somehow that IC might be biased. So there is a recurring activity around it. So there might be something like that says that once a year you meet, or just meet when there is an inquiry. But having a meeting on a regular basis would only support the cause.
Sure. Yep. Moving on to the next question, is there a prohibition for senior female person who is heading a section in a company to be a IC member? Is there any prohibition for senior female person? Yeah.
What kind of prohibition? I mean, I didn't get the question.
Okay, is there a prohibition for senior female person who is heading a section in a company to be an IC member?
No,
Should not bar it.
should not be. I mean, it could be any senior female.
Yeah.
That could be the presiding officer of an IC committee.
Right. There's a similar question on IC at colleges. So I think we've answered this pretty much.
Yes,
Be it an educational institution, wherever you call it a workplace, that's where the implementation does come.
You know, our act has been very progressive when it came to defining the workplace. It is the place you're working. It is your extended workplace. So your educational institutes, your nursing homes, your government organizations, your non-government organizations, we have it all covered. You know, your sports facilities. If you go through the act in detail, you will know that a lot of it is covered. Right. We haven't really spared any area.
Yeah. There's another question which goes out to say, if we don't have more senior female employees in the organization, so can we continue with the same presiding officer beyond 3 years?
Well, ideally not. I think, again, I would go back to what I said, that you could look at your subsidiary companies, you could look at your group companies, you could look at your sister concerns, and, you know, women are everywhere. So we are in the age of gender diversity. A little hard to believe that you will not find another person 3 years down the line.
Yes.
But yes, rotational, please. So that, you know, it doesn't become a power-centric thing. You kind of dilute the whole premise of this person has been there consistently. You bring in the new person, the new ideas, the new objective, and maintain the objectivity to a larger extent. So yes, it says you don't go beyond the third 3-year term.
Sure. There are a couple of questions where the participants would, the attendees would like to understand some concepts which we have discussed through the presentation, which is in terms of who is an external member and what is a local complaints committee. So these are some things that our attendees would like to understand a little bit more.
Okay, so your external member is a person who's not an employee of the organization, first of all. It has to be a person who's worked in an NGO or in a legal domain to do with the women-centric issues. So that's pretty much the qualifier for an external member. So this person will be part of the strategy that you guys want to make to drive the thing, and necessarily be on board in terms of the inquiries, specific inquiries that come your way. So that's pretty much an external member for you. Local complaints committee is at a district level. So we have it as per the districts. I think if you can Google, you can check that what are the coordinates for your local complaint committee. And there have been instances where, you know, the internal committee has not entertained a particular complaint, and the complainant has gone ahead and complained to the local committee. I don't remember the exact name, but there was a case which was to do with Indore location, Medanta Hospital, where this particular thing happened. And this lady kept writing to the HR and kept informing the committee. Nobody did anything. She straight away went to the local committee. And then I think they took up the cause for her. So local committee is at a district level, addressing the same issues.
Right. There's also just another extended question which talks about what about unorganized sector, women working in unorganized sector. So,
like I said, unorganized sector, less than 10 employees, you may reach out to your local committee. So for an example, even your domestic help that comes at home, and your home is a workplace for them. They could be free to file a complaint if there is anything wrong in terms of sexual harassment that happens with her.
Sure. Of course, there's also another question which says, would you like to recommend any movie that depicts POSH?
I think I know Dr. Ashwini Kumar is from Santulan.
And Dr. Ashwini Kumar has also mentioned that there's this movie called Guilty, which gives a fair perspective.
Well, I haven't watched the movie, Dr. Kumar, and I would definitely see it after your recommendation. I see so many live cases and instances, I guess I don't want to watch a movie.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, sure. So this pretty much, I think, has sort of brought us to an end of these Q&As as well. Anjali, if you'd like to key in one or two of the most important citations on the chat box, which would be helpful to the audience as well, if you would like to do that. In the meantime, yeah.
Should I type it out, or
if you would like to key in also, because in the meantime, I'm just going to take the audience through the EBC Learning portal as well. So where I just want to share.
I think I'll just key in on the chat section then the cases that we spoke about.
Sure.
Oh, we have another question. What about men being harassed by women? Should not be both sexes? Okay. I'm happy to work with you, Mr. Gupta, on issues of men being harassed. Let's connect sometime and work on it. We have no biases towards men at all. And like I shared in my presentation, that there are organizations which have come up with gender neutral policies, irrespective of law being there or not. We can do our bit for the cause, definitely.
Yeah, sure. So I'd just like to very quickly run you through the website of EBC Learning. So here's the website of the official platform of EBC Learning. If I may just navigate you through, there have been quite many courses that are being offered. Some really interesting ones where you could see that if you would be interested in taking on courses like arbitration or contract drafting, there are courses also on consumer law, IBC. There are extensive courses on insolvency and bankruptcy code, GST in constitutional change. So there have been many such courses being offered, RERA essentials. So these are some of the courses that are being offered. Do take your time out and visit the website, that's ebclearning.com, and do check out on our courses, and I'm sure they would be of great use to you in terms of learn to win. So that's the very objective here. So now that we've almost come to an end of this session, Anjali, I'd like to profoundly thank you for taking your time out and being on this session on POSH, the internal committee aspects, which have been very insightful, though a very crisp presentation, but it was a very comprehensive one. And we'd like to hear from you more often. Take your vast experiences. If you could share, come back to the platform and share your vast experiences with us, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much for heading this session of the webinar. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience. It's been wonderful. Thanks for the wonderful questions again, and being so interactive. Thank you all. Thank you. And I'll be ending the session now.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.